everyone. Welcome to another YVCOG Cog-Cast. Today we are talking with Edica, and she is going to be sharing a program that is going to be coming into YVCOG called Target Zero. Can you share with us what Target Zero is?
Absolutely. Target Zero is a statewide and actually national initiative to eliminate traffic deaths and serious injuries. Target Zero is something that Washington adopted in the early 2000s, and we embraced it full force. And essentially, the idea behind it is that there is no appropriate number of folks who are dying in car crashes. The appropriate number is zero. And so for us, the state, we set a goal of zero, which felt appropriate and right for us. The nation has followed, and the rest of the country also has adopted a Target Zero, a goal. And so what we've done is asked that our partners in different parts of the state adopt a Target Zero, a local Target Zero goal, and adopt Target Zero Manager. And so I think that's what we want to talk a little bit about.
That's great. So when you say Target Zero, do we have a lot of crashes here that result in a fatality?
Yeah, unfortunately, Target Zero is a goal that in maybe 15 years ago, 10 years ago, we felt little more stronger about. As we've evolved, into this time frame post-COVID, we've seen fatalities increase exponentially in this state. And that's why we are just out here trying to connect with folks in the community to develop relationships so we can start chipping that fatality rate back down. It needs to decrease and not increase, and unfortunately we're going in the wrong direction.
So something you said that I want to target or really key in is that the community and how we involve the community, because it really takes all of us to figure out solutions to be able to really impact this specific program of reducing the fatalities and getting to that Target Zero. So who are our community members and what does that look like?
Yeah, I feel like most people have been impacted by a car crash, whether as a pedestrian, a victim, or they themselves, part of some type of collision that has impacted them. And fortunately, in this area, fatality crashes the rate is quite a bit higher than some other parts of the state. So we are asking that the community engage proactively in adjusting their behaviors, things like separating driving from use of alcohol or impaired driving, wearing their seatbelt every single time, slowing down is going to be a huge part of protecting themselves and others from crashes, whether they're serious injury crashes, minor crashes, or ultimately fatality crashes, which is something we completely want to eliminate and avoid.
Right. And so when there is a fatality, a crash, and we have all of these different people that are impacted by that, how do we find ways to communicate with maybe new drivers?
Yeah, it's going to be very important that we all engage in this 100%. We want our educators, our community leaders, friends and family to be spreading different messages about what I just talked about, which is essentially being consistent with your seatbelts and speeding. And it does impact the community, from teachers who see the youth that they're teaching impacted by these car crashes, whether through injuries, the first responders, emergency responders who see this impacts of crashes day in and day out, and so on and so forth. And so we just really want to impart to in particular this community, there is a high risk of traffic crashes in this area, and it is very serious, and we want to help protect folks from injury and ultimately fatality crashes.
So we know that when somebody is drinking alcohol, or now that
using cannabis,
some drugs are legal, that it does impair our reflexes, our decision making, all of those things. So talk to me about how that best friend is out with you and sees that you've had a couple drinks, how that best friend can assist you in making a better choice.
Sure. I think the most proactive way to do that is beforehand. I mean, obviously, we run a lot of education and campaigns around planning ahead. We see a lot of other resources that may not be available to this area. So things like 24-hour access to rideshare or taxis, public transit. While that's available to many of our urban partners in areas, it's not necessarily something that we see in the rural Yakima Valley. So we have to be proactive in how we engage with it. We know we're going to friends, families, dinners where we're going to be having drinks or whatever. We want to ensure that we're planning ahead or, assigning that Uber driver. But if you find yourself in the situation where you may need to do what we would consider like an intervention of sorts in the moment, feel like folks should feel empowered to do that for their loved ones and for folks that they know that maybe they can, call someone or engage in some type of intervention that would protect them from getting on the road or waiting. Maybe just wait it out for a while. So there, you do have options, even though sometimes it doesn't feel like it in the moment. You really have to prioritize your safety for yourself and others, because it's not just about you at that moment. There are other people that you're interfacing with on the roadways that are just trying to get home or get to the grocery store or drive to work. It's an important thing, and you don't want to find yourself in that situation. No one does.
So let's talk about texting
Yeah.
and driving. That seems to be such an acceptable behavior. We know that there have been some very serious and very unfortunate accidents because of that.
Yeah. Texting is one of those things that kind of came at us real quick. We now all have these like high functioning machines at the tips of our fingers, and we use it for things like our music and directions and GPS. I just feel very strongly that disconnecting that behavior from actually driving should not be seen as just this like easy breezy thing to do. You should not be introducing complicated things while you're engaging with the motor vehicle. I would say sometimes folks, put it in the cradle, put it away, but texting is certainly something that you will see over and over again. People taking a longer time to drive through the light because they're busy looking at their telephone, rear end crashes, folks who are distracted looking down at their phone. These things will eventually those types of behaviors will eventually catch up with you. You don't want to be texting and driving as a habit at all. And we're a hands-free state, one of the first ones in the United States, so we should be prioritizing this. And you could potentially get a fine if you're caught texting and driving.
Mm-hmm. So you shared that it's a GPS. We also have GPS in our vehicles. I think when we take our eyes off the road, try to put in the information to our GPS of where we're trying to get to, I don't think we even realize the distance that we drive as we're looking down.
Yeah,
Can
absolutely.
you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, break times, all of these things are delayed and you really don't understand quite how far you're traveling when you're, like you were saying, simply diverting your eyesight or your attention to your hand or your device, even if it's in the cradle. So my advice would be to just handle that before you start getting on the road, making sure you're, really focusing on the work of driving, not necessarily, changing your podcast or, set that stuff up. Turn on the YVCOG podcast before you get down the road but no, it's a little bit of a struggle. Everybody has to check their own behavior as a responsible adult, as a person who's interfacing with folks up and down the road every single day. I have to check my speed. I have to ensure that I'm not overindulging. I'm wearing my seatbelt. I'm, getting my directions before I actually start the actions of driving.
Mm-hmm. I think after driver's ed, you see people being very, very cautious because they understand that this vehicle that they're driving can be very dangerous. And as we get more comfortable driving and we feel that we've got it under control, that may be when people become a little more
complacent.
Yeah, great word. Let's talk about the youth driving versus maybe people in their 30s who, that youth can enjoy the thrill of driving and maybe be speeding. But then we've also got older people who feel very confident with their driving and maybe texting and doing some other things. How do we help them understand the seriousness?
Yeah, I'll first start with youth drivers. Youth driving, it's a rite of passage. A lot of folks get really used to the idea, I can't wait to get my driver's license, and that's a part of it, part of growing up. But what we're noticing in our data is that youth who do not take driver's training are do not create those good driving habits necessarily. If you wait to take your driver's training, because you don't have to take it after you turn 18, you can ask to go get your driver's license. What we're seeing in our data is that those folks who waited, unfortunately, are becoming more prevalent in our data, crash data. As a youth, I think I always tell my young drivers in my life, practice makes progress. If you're not gonna practice at your trade or what you're trying to learn, it becomes a more difficult task. And so youth driving with experienced drivers is going to always be kind of the best way to integrate those positive driving behaviors. As a 30-year-old who maybe it's been a long time since they took driver's training, might have become a little bit more complacent, but there is still hope for them. I mean, they can adjust their behaviors, and redundancy is so, like, if you don't put your seatbelt on every time, that is something that is going to be one of the number one things that can protect you in a crash. And the other thing, my dad always used to tell me, you can't trust the other driver. There is this version of when you're out on the road where folks who aren't paying attention hit you or could be potentially causing you harm while you're just driving along. Well, at any rate, I would just say as an older, maybe more experienced driver, more seasoned driver, I would always just check your own behaviors. The laws tend to change too. There's check for speed limits, and I like to use my GPS. I don't know all the roads, and I go, okay, where am I going? But I'll set my GPS before I take off, and on there it will tell you, like what your speed limits are and different hazards on the road. So just be attuned to kind of like what you're doing at the time. But at the end of the day, your safety is in your hands. You really are the purveyor of your own safety, especially on the road. So just doing all those protective factors can help you avoid, some serious injury or crashes.
I like what you said there. I also think about the passengers in a vehicle who maybe don't have control over what the driver is doing. I think about kids in car seats. True. Those car seats being installed correctly, the child in the right size car seat facing the right direction. All of those are for the safety so that if there is an accident, we're not worried about a fatality.
Car seats are a must, obviously. Keeping children in the backseat, as you know, seatbelts are made for adults. They're not made for kids. And so even small 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, they're supposed to stay in the backseat till they're 13, and they're supposed to buckle up every time. There's a lot of great resources online. You can go to the Washington Traffic Safety Commission website and find out all of the different ways to graduate a child from the rear-facing seat to the convertible seat to the booster seat, those types of things. I mean, the children are precious, right? They're precious cargo. We want to make sure that they're safe every ride. But, as a passenger, I remember, I grew up, we didn't have a primary seatbelt law, and when I was a young person. And I remember somebody telling me, buckle up. I don't want you flying into me if, somebody hits us. And that stayed with me because then in my mind, I was protecting somebody else. And even though I should have had my own safety at primary, and it started to kind of evolve how I thought about, what was happening in the car and how I was an engaged participant in that.
So is there a place here in the Yakima Valley that somebody can go to see if they are putting their car seat in correctly, that they have their child buckled in correctly? Because a lot of people, they're wanting to do the right thing. They want to protect their children. They understand they are the most precious cargo that we have. They're even more precious than we are. And so where can they go to be able to receive that assistance?
It varies all over the state. There are a lot of the times there's the car seat clinics that you'll see. I've seen car shops or vendors, host these car seat clinics. I've seen, I know that Yakima PD, they've long held a program where you can go and just ask, and they'll be able to engage with a child passenger safety technician or a car seat technician to either set up an appointment and, call your local police department on emergency line, potentially even your local fire department. Online resources are also available. If you go online, you can search for child passenger safety technician near me, and Yakima has quite a few in this area that should be able to help you out.
That's great. And so if there's a family out there that maybe cannot afford a car seat, are there resources for them to be able to get a car seat?
Yeah. So as far as I know, there are resources that help subsidize some of those car seats. The family might have to come up with a few bucks. I think there might be opportunities for them to get the car seat entirely for free. I would have to, look into that, but I'm almost certain that there's going to be a program locally that'll help procure a car seat for families that, are definitely in need, car seats and booster seats.
Well, thank you for being with
you.
us. This is so exciting that we are going to be hosting this program for the Valley here. And we are hoping to have you back. And of course, we will share more information as things come up. And we would love for you to be involved with Target Zero and how we can help find solutions to be able to eliminate fatalities. Washington Traffic Safety Commission. We will make sure and put that link in this podcast so that you can go directly to their site to be able to see a lot of resources that they have. And then, of course, reach out to us. If you are interested in participating in any of our committees or you have ideas of solutions, we definitely want to hear from you. So make sure you hit like and subscribe, and we will see you in our next podcast.